I will now play the Oedipus to the Rattleborough enigma. I will expound to you, as I alone can, the secret of the enginery that effected the Rattleborough miracle, the one, the true, the admitted, the undisputed, the indisputable miracle, which put a definite end to infidelity among the Rattleburgers, and converted to the orthodoxy of the grandames all the carnal-minded who had ventured to be skeptical before. This event, which I should be sorry to discuss in a tone of unsuitable levity, occurred in the summer of 18 Mr. Barnabas Shuttleworthy, one of the wealthiest and most respectable citizens of the borough, had been missing for several days under circumstances which gave rise to suspicion of foul play. Mr. Shuttleworthy had set out from Rattleborough very early one Saturday morning on horseback, with the avowed intention of proceeding to the city of about 15 miles distant, and of returning the night of the same day. 2 hours after his departure, however, his horse returned without him, and without the saddlebags which had been strapped on his back at starting. The animal was wounded too, and covered with mud. These circumstances naturally gave rise to much alarm among the friends of the missing man, and when it was found on Sunday morning that he had not yet made his appearance, the whole borough arose en masse to go and look for his body. The foremost and most energetic of instituting this search was the bosom friend of Mr. Shuttleworthy, a Mr. Charles Goodfellow, or, as he was universally called, Charlie Goodfellow, or Old Charlie Goodfellow. Now, whether it is a marvelous coincidence, or whether it is that the name itself has an imperceptible effect upon the character, I have never been able to ascertain, but the fact is unquestionable that there never yet was any person named Charles who was not an open, manly, honest, good-natured, and frank-hearted fellow, with a rich, clear voice that did you good to hear it, and an eye that looked you always straight in the face, as much as to say, I have a clear conscience myself, and am afraid of no man, and am altogether above doing a mean action. And thus all the hearty, careless, walking gentlemen of the stage are very certain to be called Charles. Now, old Charlie Goodfellow, although he had been in Rattleborough no longer than 6 months or thereabouts, and although nobody knew anything about him before he came to settle in the neighborhood, had experienced no difficulty in the world in making the acquaintance of all the respectable people in the borough. Not a man of them would have taken his bare word for 1,000 at any moment, and as for the women, there is no saying what they would not have done to oblige him. And all this came of his having been christened Charles, and of his possessing, in consequence, that ingenuous face, which is proverbially the very best seller of recommendation. I have already said that Mr. Shuttleworthy was one of the most respectable, and undoubtedly he was the most wealthy man in Rattleborough, while old Charlie Goodfellow was upon as intimate terms with him as if he had been his own brother. The two old gentlemen were next-door neighbors, and although Mr. Shuttleworthy seldom, if ever, visited old Charlie, and never was known to take a meal in his house, still this did not prevent the two friends from being exceedingly intimate, as I have just observed. For old Charlie never let a day pass without stepping in 3 or 4 times to see how his neighbor came on, and very often he would stay to breakfast or tea, and almost always to dinner, and then the amount of wine that was made way with by the two cronies at a sitting, it would really be a difficult thing to ascertain. Old Charlie's favorite beverage was Chateau Margaux, and it appeared to do Mr. Shuttleworthy's heart good to see the old fellow swallow it, as he did quart after quart. So that, one day, when the wine was in, and the wit, as a natural consequence, somewhat out, he said to his crony as he slapped him upon the back, I tell you what it is, old Charlie, you are, by all odds, the heartiest old fellow I ever came across in all my born days, and since you love to guzzle the wine at that fashion, I'll be darned if I don't have to make thee a present of a big box of Chateau Margaux. Odd rot me, Mr. Shuttleworthy had a sad habit of swearing, although he seldom went beyond "odd rot me," or "by gosh," or "by the jolly golly." "Odd rot me," says he, "if I don't send an order to town this very afternoon for a double box of the best that can be got, and I'll make ye a present of it. I will. Ye need n't say a word now. I will, I tell ye, and there's an end of it. So look out for it. It will come to hand some of these fine days, precisely when ye are looking for it the least." I mention this little bit of liberality on the part of Mr. Shuttleworthy just by way of showing you how very intimate an understanding existed between the two friends. Well, on the Sunday morning in question, when it came to be fairly understood that Mr. Shuttleworthy had met with foul play, I never saw anyone so profoundly affected as old Charlie Goodfellow. When he first heard that the horse had come home without his master, and without his master's saddlebags, and all bloody from a pistol shot that had gone clean through and through the poor animal's chest, without quite killing him. When he heard all this, he turned as pale as if the missing man had been his own dear brother or father, and shivered and shook all over as if he had had a fit of the ague. At first he was too much overpowered with grief to be able to do anything at all, or to decide upon any plan of action, so that for a long time he endeavored to dissuade Mr. Shuttleworthy's other friends from making a stir about the matter, thinking it best to wait a while, say for a week or two, or a month or two, to see if something would not turn up, or if Mr. Shuttleworthy would not come in the natural way and explain his reasons for sending his horse on before. I dare say you have often observed this disposition to temporize or to procrastinate in people who are laboring under any very poignant sorrow. Their powers of mind can seem to be rendered torpid, so that they have a horror of anything like action, and like nothing in the world so well as to lie quietly in bed and nurse their grief, as the old ladies express it, that is to say, ruminate over their trouble.